So I'm going to start off with a story that might seem kind of random, but I promise if you stay with me to the very end, it's going to come full circle. And that story is the one about the boy who cried wolf. So you're probably familiar with the story. There's a boy who is protecting his town or overseeing livestock from the danger of wolves. And anytime that he sees a wolf, he is supposed to cry out and let his town know that danger is approaching. So all throughout the story, the boy cries wolf multiple times, and the town springs into action. Anytime they hear the word wolf, they know that there is danger coming. They rush to his aid, only to find out that there is no wolf. This happens a few times, and of course, as we all know, by the very end of the story, the boy cries wolf a final time when there really is a wolf and no one reacts. What's super interesting about this story is that it's thought of to be a warning for young children about the dangers of lying. If you lie so many times, eventually no one will believe you. But I actually have a different, more nuanced interpretation that I wanted to share with you guys. And that interpretation is that it's not that the boy is lying per se, and that's why people no longer rush to his aid at the very end, but instead I think that the word wolf itself has been overused, but more importantly misused by the boy so many times that the word wolf no longer evokes that kind of horrific feeling that causes people to spring into action. Instead, the word wolf, all power, has been totally diluted by the boy misusing it, and suddenly when people hear that word, they no longer even flinch. Now, the reason I say this is applicable is because it absolutely reflects the mainstream media's overuse and, more importantly, misuse of really dangerous, emotion-provoking words such as racism, homophobia, xenophobia, Islamophobia, misogyny. They overuse them and misuse them so often that eventually when we hear these words, no one is going to care. And that is super dangerous, as when we hear these words, we are supposed to immediately jump into action, but if they're being misused too many times, who will do that? The people in the town sure didn't when they heard the word wolf. So, for example, if someone offers a dissenting opinion to the efficacy of Obama's presidency, if they state they don't like Obama, they did not agree with any of his policies, typically this person is labeled racist. I'm wondering if you see a problem with that. So now I want to reel things in even more and make them that much more relevant and look at and show you this New York Times Instagram post that they uploaded a couple weeks ago. So in this Instagram post, they run a really cool story about a couple and their experience with the Spanish flu. Now notice the New York Times refers to the Spanish flu accurately as the Spanish flu. But in these articles that they've also been posting over the past couple of weeks, they criticize President Trump for referring to the Chinese coronavirus as such. Instead, they say that we should just refer to it as the coronavirus. In addition to the New York Times, other mainstream media outlets such as CNN, MSNBC, Joe Biden, for example, refer to the use of the Chinese coronavirus naming convention as racist and xenophobic. Joe Biden has even gone to extremes such as saying travel bans are xenophobic. At what point is the misuse of the word racist and xenophobic incredibly problematic? And at what point do we need to call out these media companies and people for stealing the power away from these really dangerous words, for diluting them, overusing them, and most importantly, misusing them? Think about this. German measles, West Nile virus, Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome, Spanish influenza, Chinese coronavirus. Do you see the similarities? The accepted naming convention for major diseases is the type of disease, whether it be the coronavirus, an influenza, a respiratory syndrome, and the place of origin. Germany, Spain, China. That is the naming convention that we have used and have accepted repeatedly. Even the New York Times accepts this naming convention, Spanish influenza. But why suddenly, when we use the naming convention to describe our most recent pandemic, it's racist? That's a misuse of the word. So these are my final thoughts. If the mainstream media, Joe Biden, whoever it might be, even just a normal person like you or I, is going to use one of these really powerful words, let's make sure that we are using it correctly. Because anytime that we misuse one of these words or overuse them in ways that are incorrect, we are stealing the power away from these words. The people who need these words to describe some kind of evil or injustice that has happened to them rely on these words to label what that source of evil is. They rely on these words to convey to others what has been done to them to hopefully rectify it in some way or prevent it from happening again. But every single time we misuse the word racism to refer to a naming convention for a disease, the next time a minority person says a racist thing has been done to me, that word racist is no longer going to evoke as much emotion as it used to because of how many times it's been misused. Just as the word wolf no longer caused the town people to run. Something to think about.